Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Consciousness Collective podcast, a podcast where we discuss ideas of awakening, spiritual growth, and simply the evolution of consciousness, what it has to do with the collective. I am your host, Leb, and today I have my first returning special guest, actually, and that would be Willow. Hello, Willow.
Hi, Leb. Thanks for having me on again. Love these conversations. It's always a blast. Excited to see what we dive into today. And for all those who have not seen the first episode, I'm Willow Caelan, otherwise known as Willow's Quest on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. And my specialty is quantum Reiki, and I help people to remove energetic blockages and emotional blockages. I also am huge into quantum alchemy, and helping people to timeline shift and jump and step into their highest self through that process. So love talking about all the different topics in between there as well, and excited to be back on.
Excellent. Thank you. And just a reminder for those people listening, if this is something that you're interested into, if you're enjoying the podcast, please remember to like, follow, share, subscribe, all those little things. Click all the buttons because it really helps out, especially starting out. So, where do we dive in? Why don't we start off with some of the current themes or the current energies that are being felt in the collective? Because we did this... what is the date today? It's the 19th that we're recording this, or is it just the 20th?
I think it's the 20th.
So we recently came through the full moon and the eclipse going on, and that was a lot of energies for everybody to experience. And especially like the term ascension symptoms gets thrown around a lot. How are those, what are the different ways that those are experienced, and what is your understanding of what's going on there?
To dive into this topic, we just had the last full moon that was just this last week was in Virgo, and Virgos tend to be very well organized. They tend to think through things very well and to have step-by-step processes for what they do, and that's phenomenal. But when it's in a full moon, it can cause a large amount of overthinking. It can cause a large excess of energy and emotions to come to the surface about whatever it is we're overthinking about. And it can cause us to ruminate emotionally on past situations that we wish would have turned out differently, or things where we really wanted to do better, or we wanted the other person to do better. And it all brought everything to the surface. And then we also had a full lunar eclipse during that full moon, which I don't think we've had a full lunar eclipse since last year, have we?
I think you're correct on that.
Yeah, so it's been a little while. We're kicking off the eclipse season with, strong start. The lunar eclipses tend to bring up, they tend to kind of pull the rug out from us, to be completely honest. When we are going through a situation that doesn't leave us completely aligned with where we're meant to be going, those situations will literally be yanked out from underneath us. We don't have the choice on it anymore. It's just not there. So with all these situations from the Virgo full moon culminating with the lunar eclipse, the full lunar eclipse, I mean, the propensity for crashing out was pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely felt on my end. Not just with physical issues, but there was a lot that just, motivation dissolved, and just it's hard to kind of qualify or to describe, but I certainly felt it. And I'm also a Virgo rising.
Okay.
So same. Did I know that? I don't know. Did we know that? I don't know.
That's so funny. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Double Gemini Virgo rising would be my big three. Yeah, I got a lot of Gemini going on. And you want to talk about overthinking? Mm-hmm.
That'll put you in it. That'll put you in it for sure. Yeah, anyone who had Virgo in their top 3 in their chart, sun, moon, or rising sign, otherwise known as the ascendant sign, are going to have, they're going to be highly affected, but any earth sign in particular. So I think that's Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Am I missing one, or is that it?
Yep.
Okay, so Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus were all going to be very highly affected by what was going on with that. And then the full lunar eclipse was also in Virgo, correct? Because it's a Virgo full moon.
I believe
So
so.
it was a lot to be going on. And then we also had Schumann resonance blasts. We had, according to the Schumann resonance, timeline jumps. For all those who are curious, NASA even follows the Schumann resonance and looks at all of these numbers coming through. To top on to that, to add a little cherry on there, we also had solar flares that were coming in like crazy. So there's currently 13 active solar flares on the sun at the moment that have not released. Currently, they're said to be releasing today or tomorrow as we're recording this. And we have
Gotcha.
Mercury retrograde. Oh, and Venus is retrograde, and Neptune just switched. So these are like.
Well, we got a lot going on. Well, and the Venus
I know.
retrograde has so much to do with, from my opinion, relationships and kind of emotions and things like that.
Yes.
Not so
Yeah,
much emotions, but our interrelationships with others.
huge with that. With Venus going retrograde, it forces us to look at our cycles in relationships. If we're currently in a relationship, that can be really bad or it can be really good. It depends on how those people align with one another within the relationship, and it also depends on, if they're in alignment for where they're both headed in their life. So if
Yes.
both of those boxes are checked, then that's going to be an amazing growth period for that couple, right? For that relationship in general, it's going to be phenomenal. But if even one of those boxes is unchecked, that becomes a very rocky and scary time frame within that relationship, because you're having to pull back the wool on all the problems we've been brushing under the rug and figure them
Right.
out or lose it, is how that would go. Plus, we're also in Mercury retrograde, going through Aries, and what was the other one that it's going through? Is Aries and Virgo. I think at the beginning of it was Virgo, and then it was going to be going into Aries after, before it was done. So, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong in that, but that's what I'm remembering right now. Aries is a very fiery, passionate, gung ho kind of
Yeah.
energy there, and so that can either be really good or really bad. Again, it's there's no middle of the road on any of what we're experiencing over this almost month-long period of energies transitioning. It is the astrological new year, so everything is getting into place for the year coming up, which means we all have to do the same thing. And that's emotionally, that's energetically, that's physically where we're aligning to with the things we're doing, especially with projects and goals and work. You might have noticed a really big push to go through with your podcast and to keep getting it out there and doing these things, even
Yep.
though some days it's just like, I can't do it anymore. And then the next day, like, I have to.
Like, I gotta keep going. Yeah,
Yeah.
and not only that, but frustrations and doubts coming in as well, and especially, and I things like having to reschedule
Yes.
episodes, and I'm not meaning that. I know we had to reschedule this one, but we're here now. But I had another one that was scheduled on Monday, and that one got canceled as well. So like two in a row this week, and that kind of got me a little bit of like, okay, do I have to double down? Is this a sign like, oh, maybe I should go the other way? But it's still feeling very aligned, and I've been reaching out to more people and all of those
Good.
things. Well, and another thing that you touched on, just kind of the energies and the manifestations bringing in. And what is, hey, man, I think we can talk about like the process of manifestation a little bit more, because I feel like that is misunderstood. It's kind of one of those like hot button items, or one of those like a buzzword that has been going around recently of like, oh, manifestation. But I think that there's more to it, or a little bit different to it than a lot of people realize, and I've still been learning on that myself. But with all the energies that are coming together, as you were describing, now's a good time to be to be figuring it out.
Yes. Get yourself aligned and just start heading toward that direction. Um, Everything that I've been seeing, have been experiencing too. You say you've been experiencing the similar things. You're headed in the direction of where you feel you're aligned to, and then it's Mercury retrograde, so things are going to go wrong. And really, from what I've seen with it, it's a matter of how determined are you? How balanced are you to understand when you need to keep pushing forward and when you need to take a breath and sit there and figure some more stuff out, right? And that's part of the process, but also to know that these blockages aren't necessarily coming in as a way to completely tell you that this is not it. It's a way to see, well, there's a few things going on. One thing you can take it as is the way to see how determined you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
How determined are you? How much do you really want this? Another thing to look at too is that the energy when you manifest is manifesting from whatever energy you're currently in. So if you're in an energy of lack and you're manifesting that you want something to start, you want to get going on something more, to get somewhere with a goal, the opportunities that come in for you might be slightly misaligned, or they might come through and have all sorts of roadblocks in the way because you manifested it from a place of lack. So that means that you're going to have to remanifest it while you're going along this path from an energy of gratitude or from an energy of abundance, and working through that as you go. With manifestation, there's so much to it. It's not just like we have one technique and that technique can work for us to manifest things pretty easily. We might manifest one item at a time, or we might manifest a relationship or like an experience to be had, right? And that's amazing. But how much does that line up with your energy in the way
Yes.
of, is it actually fulfilling, or is it kind of half-mast? Like it's not completely where you want it to be. So that will tell you where you manifested that experience from. What energy were you in during that manifestation? Firstly, the second part that's really important to cover is that these certain techniques can bring in little things, but if you are wanting to manifest something like a new lifestyle or stepping into a fully new experience for work or doing something along those lines, it really does come down to having not just to manifest one particular item, but you're manifesting an entire lifestyle. That means that you have to change. And a lot of the different things coming through after you manifest that are going to change you into the person you need to be to step into that lifestyle. How quickly you get through those obstacles is totally up to you, and how you learn and how you grow through them, right? Um, but all of those are coming in as opportunities to then grow into the person you need to be. If you can sit down and write out and feel into and visualize and emote on who it is that you need to be in the lifestyle that you're calling in. And then every time you come up to one of the obstacles, you say, what would my highest self do? Right? And you look back on that paper that you wrote out. How would you handle that if you were in your higher self energy? Really embody that, and whatever answer comes through, take that route. Right? So if you have some really big obstacle come up for you, say that, I don't know, say that you have a website and the website went down for however long and you have a complete crash out because your website went down. What you're doing is you're throwing the extra energy toward that situation, that problem, in the reverse. You're now
Mm-hmm.
making momentum to go backwards, right? But if you can sit there and breathe through that and then allow yourself to think forward of, okay, this is what's happening. What steps do I need to take in order to resolve what's going on? Now you're putting your momentum in the forward motion. Now you're thinking more into your higher self.
Yes, I agree with that. And there's another aspect, or kind of another way of looking at the things that hold us back from those manifestations, is that when you are stepping into that manifestation, when you're stepping into that higher self, you're embodying that frequency, as we've kind of talked about. But when you do that, that needs to happen on multiple levels. So there is the mindset, of course, that needs to be, understood. That is your thinking pattern. But there's also aspects within, even in your physical body, as to whether or not that new pattern feels safe. Because there is so much resistance to change that we just kind of have, just simply through living as we live and through using our 3D brain, which is so great at finding safety in patterns, safety in those repeating patterns. But as we start trying to step out of those, and as we start trying to build ourselves into a new person, there's kind of an internal battle going on, and it doesn't really have to be a battle. It doesn't have to be looked at like that. But one way that I've kind of been given of understanding of like when there are those steps back, it is the old pattern, the part that you are trying to step away from, that is coming back in and kind of going, "Are you sure? Is it? Can we do this? Are we safe?" Uh, and so finding ways like, yes, you can. This is kind of where I'm at with my manifestations, is dealing with these issues, because I realize that a lot of those fears and those programmings are subconscious or completely unconscious. And what I struggle with is, does that mean that I should go into those and try to find like, where does this subconscious belief pattern come from, or should I just focus more on rewriting it? And my struggle with just simply trying to rewrite it feels like it is trying to deny something, as opposed to integrate and build upon, or to move on from. Uh, and again, I have that self-awareness of like, is that simply my doubt or my fear of letting go of something that I no longer am, really?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay, so I actually was just reading a Dr. Joe Dispenza book called Becoming Supernatural about this exact thing. And our body is a mind of its own. It holds information within the nervous system. It holds information within our muscular system, even within each internal organ and that system in itself. It holds information, which is pretty amazing. So when we say that you, in your years from 0 to 7 years old, like wrote an internal core belief about not feeling worthy, right? You never felt good enough for whatever reason when it came to your parents, or when it came to trying to get love or what you needed from your surrounding. You just were not good enough to be able to get it. And so that's become your internal core belief, right? A lot can stem from that belief surrounding what it is you do in your life and how you move throughout your life. But it's not a conscious thought. You're not sitting there constantly being like, I'm just never good enough. It just comes through from your body. And every
Right.
now and then it comes through your mind, right? So what you're talking about, you come through the goals that you have and you really want to get there. But your entire life, you have been solidifying this idea that you're not good enough through different situations. And through these situations, instead of seeking the forward movement of how can I resolve this? This is where I am right now. This is where I would like to be. When we come from that energy of lack, we ruminate on the problem instead of looking for the resolution. So as we're ruminating on the problem, we're actually hardwiring our mind, our nervous system, and our body to think, to prove to ourselves that we are not, in fact, good enough or worthy to get where we want to go. So this is why we sit and spin in this one spot, right? So years of that. And then as you're trying to step out of it, you're becoming more conscious of your thoughts. You're working through, you're putting effort into manifestation, you're journaling, you're healing. And now you're trying to get to a better position in life. Now your body, your subconscious and your nervous system is in congruence with your conscious thought patterns. It's not lined up with it because your body and everything else is telling you, no, 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 this is how it's been for years. And your mind is like, but wait a second, we're going this way.
Yes,
So
exactly.
exactly. So what we have to do with that, the techniques behind that, there's different things that we can do. If you feel that you've put in the healing work and the energy to have the conscious understanding of why these feelings are coming up, but you're still not able to get past them, now it's time to put in that layer of work on your nervous system and your subconscious mind. So with these blocks, there's a few different techniques you can use. One of the ones that I absolutely love, and I actually just mentioned this on one of my recent videos, was shifting. So quantum
Yes.
shifting is a phenomenal way to break that nervous system cycle in a conscious manner. So what you're doing is you center your energy first. You just breathe yourself back down into the present moment, right? You feel through your fingers, you feel through your toes, you let yourself be conscious within your physical body in the very present moment. And then once you're in that centered space, what you do is you start visualizing in your mind. You can close your eyes and really feel into where it is you want to be or what attribute of that reality you want to embody right now for whatever it is you're working on. So that could be confidence, that could be bravery, that could be determination, that could be anything. And then you're going to visualize what you look like with that energy, how you behave, what are your mannerisms, what does it feel like to be in that within yourself, right? How does that feel? And then you're going to let that energy completely flow all the way through you and totally let yourself embody what that feels like, let yourself feel really good with it. And then you're going to allow your body physically to fall forward until it stops itself. So you can either be, it's best to be doing this when you're standing up, right? It can take only up to like a minute once you get the pattern down of how to go through it. And then as you let your body fall forward and then it stops itself, it brings your mind instantly back to the present and it breaks that nervous system cycle out of what you had been cycling in and into what it is you had been visualizing and embodying.
Yeah.
Okay. You're falling forward into that frequency. So you can actually, a lot of people tend to feel really anxious after that happens because it's like you broke the cycle. You broke your nervous system out of it. And you can start to feel anxious, like almost panic attacky. And when that happens, you have to jump and physically move that energy out of your body. And as you do that, each time you land, you're solidifying this new version of you. So it's really, really phenomenal practice. And you can do that, one attribute at a time. But once you get really good at doing that, the really fun thing is to embody a full version of your highest self and just step into it entirely. Mm-hmm. That takes like, from my personal experience, around a week to a week and a half to completely embody it and to really start implementing all these different things, especially if you've been stuck in lack for a long time. Hi. So
hello.
Fully get it. I'm experimenting on myself as I'm going through this and teaching other people, but it's a great way, an amazing, phenomenal way once you've put in the conscious effort and you're still finding those roadblocks to get through the roadblocks.
Mm-hmm. I love that you mentioned experimenting on yourself to find the way through. That is so much the story of being a healer, quite honestly. Being a healer, being a teacher is learning by, falling through it, essentially, or working our way through it. That's part of what I love about these conversations, is that we can actually like get into those parts of like when we are practicing and when we are, doing our thing online or posting videos. There's, for lack of a better term, it's a mask that we wear. It's an aspect of ourselves that we present. There's a performative aspect to it. But at the same time, I think that people can kind of get the wrong idea of, the type of person that you are from that, or what you have been through. I was actually having this discussion about like the whole love and light thing with Larry on the last episode, in that like people think that the spiritual community is all love and light, and it's that we've found it through struggle and hardship and difficulty. The way that he restated it was, it's more like or love and light should be more like darkness and knowledge. It's the same kind of thing. I just love the fact that is so like universal in the experience. I have
truly life is not all rainbows and butterflies. Like
it's true.
We go through a lot, and then you add in the spiritual aspect too, right? We can only see 2% of all the energy around us on a daily basis. 2% is nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so everything that you see around you is only 2% of what's actually there. And that's when you're starting to tap in with your extra perception and your extra, like, you want to talk about being overwhelming for the first go there.
Yeah. Well, and there's what I've realized is that there's kind of stages of that. Like as you start tapping in more and more to those unseen energies, you start having things like your intuition picks up. Okay, there's one. Then your clair senses start to activate, start to come online. And that can be the fun time when you start hearing things and seeing things, and you go, okay, what's going on? But then it continues to open up more and more to even like higher knowledge, and we're starting to get into more like 5D understanding and understanding of like our discussions of timelines that we've had, of how time is not linear in the way that we perceive it, or maybe the way that we perceive it is the only thing linear about time.
Yeah.
But also then the waking up to the ideas of multidimensionality and multiple parallel realities, things going on when these concepts just start to hit and they make sense, you know? And I think that's what we are talking about when people start talking about stepping into 5D consciousness and what that looks like. I think actually that could be a fun little subject. Like, I'm curious as to what your ideas on 5D consciousness are and what they look like. Yeah. Like, ready, go. Explain all of your understanding in 10 minutes. No. Like, no pressure.
Oh my God. 5D consciousness is such a big topic. So I know there's a lot of controversy around it too, because there's been a lot of people have come and said to me, you know, it's like a pipeline down to less ideal thought frame about how people should live. And I think that's interesting. It tends to be more racially charged, is how they frame it. And I personally have not experienced it that way, which is why it confuses me, but maybe I'm just not looking at it from the right, perspective. I don't know. I feel like everybody has such a different view of it. I don't know if you've heard that before, but that's come up quite a bit when I bring up 5D. So I've actually been trying to figure out a different way to explain the ideology of 5D. But from my understanding is that we all live on different dimensional playing fields, right? Like physically we're in the 3D. Mentally, most people are between the 3D world around us and 4D, which is where you're in your logical mind, where you're
Okay.
thinking through things. You're not in the physical world. Your focus isn't in the physical. 5D goes into above just your logical mind. So now you are pulling in information from energies outside of your logical mind. You're tapping in with energies outside of yourself, right? And so thinking more into the collective conscious, thinking more into the universal understanding or perspective. So that's my idea of what 5D is, because it's the fifth dimension. It has nothing, from my perspective, has nothing to do with racially charged anything or like leading down some sort of pipeline, which is what it confused me so much when people had brought that up before. So I don't know where that's coming from. It's not been my experience or nothing I've seen personally happening with people around me either. So that's why
Yeah.
I was like, but I know that it's largely thought about that way also in witch talk, like witch community, the energetic community on that side of things on TikTok views the word 5D as being like a alt-right pipeline, essentially. So really interesting there.
What?
Yeah, I know. And that's why I was like, I'm a little confused on it. So I kind of stopped using the terminology a little bit. But when we look at the actual dimensional playing fields, that's what we're looking at with 5D consciousness. So I know that there's some sort of rhetoric going around that's not correct. But when we get above 5D, that's when we're astral traveling. That's when we are astral projecting. That's when we are tapping in with people for healing, right? It's not just the conscious, but now we're tapping in with guides. We're tapping in with deities. We're tapping in with energies of the universe. That's getting above the 5D, and it can go up. What did you say last time? Like 36 dimensions?
Uh, the paper that I was quoting was actually 37. I was wrong in the
Okay.
podcast, but yes.
Yeah, I have only gone up personally, from what I know, from what I've been told with the energies I've conversed with, to 18th dimensions. So we're just not frequently, like frequency wise, we're not to the place where we can, that I've seen. Maybe there's some people, but I haven't seen it personally, that can get up above, like 20 maybe. That would be my highest guess. I haven't talked to anybody who's gone above 18, but
Me either.
37, that's phenomenal. So think about all the
Well,
different energies that live on those different dimensional fields.
yes. And the different perspectives from, consciousnesses of like living in those different dimensions, of being essentially fully integrated into that perspective is such a broader perspective that we can't even really fathom. I mean, I think personally that even when we are going into higher dimensional realities, when we are going into the astral and into, up to 12D, 18, 20, wherever, what we are getting, or at least what we get back, what we are able to bring back as far as understanding, is largely symbolic, as in it is ideas, like it is representations of the ideas and the energies that we can then translate into ways that our brain can process, because we really like the 3D brain in which we think and kind of understand from is just very limited in its understanding of interconnectedness. Like, we can get ideas and understandings, but I'm sure you've experienced, when you get into higher dimensional concepts and ideas, it is very difficult to convey in the 3D, no matter how well you feel it, you understand it, as it's been given to you. It can be extremely difficult to convey in a way that it feels like other people actually understand it to anywhere close to the level that you do. And I think that is a major issue with, like, that channelers run into, because we just need to understand that the words we use are representations. They're not the exact thing. And the way that we hold on to specific definitions, specific words, that limits us, like the different ideas of what the 5D is. So now for some people, that term 5D has this whole different connotation that they're holding on to, without, when, like, you and I start talking about it, we've got a completely different idea in mind that we're talking about. And
exactly, completely understand where you're coming from with that. I was so confused when somebody had told me that it was like an alt-right pipeline to say that, to think that way, because I'm coming at it from more of a scientific perspective of what dimensional playing fields are according to quantum physics. They're, the people who are viewing it that way, maybe there's other connotations underneath it that I haven't personally heard about, because my mind isn't there. My mind is not in with the community of people who are trying to make these scientific descriptions into something that they're not. And so I'm not paying attention in that way.
Yeah, and if you couldn't tell by my reaction, that was the first time I'd heard anything like that, or that it was racially charged.
Yes.
Like, no, it goes, like, my understanding, it has absolutely nothing to do with race. Like, that has never come into my field whatsoever.
That and light workers too, you'd be surprised. So light workers was another term that they were bringing up as it's like an alt-right pipeline, and I was like, where? Like, I'm not on that pipeline, but I consider myself a light worker in the way of, wanting to help people, of anchoring in creator consciousness, anchoring in understanding of love and healing through that energy. Instead of, like, most people learn how to heal, right? We have our lessons through not so great experiences. That's not light energy. That's more the darker energy coming in to teach you, to kick your butt in the way of where you need to get aligned into, so you have a better understanding. You learn the lessons, because humans have a propensity for learning through pain, but we can learn just as well through joy, love, excitement, if we let ourselves, if we embrace it. A lot of people just feel that love is too dangerous, right? Versus all these dark things, because love has been withheld from them for so long. They probably don't even really know what it is.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I definitely agree on that one. Even from my own experience, the having to redefine what love is has been a part of the process of really kind of understanding where, what that is, where it comes from. And any time that we have something that is unfamiliar, like you said, if it's not something that we've grown up with, or if we had grown up with the idea of love being used as like a weapon or a control mechanism, right, that can obviously create hesitance, resistance within your own field as to when you hear, okay, so love and light, or light workers, we just don't, we shy away from it. And I think this kind of goes back to what we were talking about even with manifestation, in that it doesn't feel safe because it's not familiar.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't feel safe because it's not familiar. So not only does our subconscious mind try to hold us back from being able to go into that new cycle, but our nervous system and our body is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We've been through that before. We don't want to do that again.
Yep.
I don't want to try something new because that might be scary. That might be bad. That might be dangerous to my heart or to my physical self or to my emotional self in some way. But it doesn't take into account like that cycle or that new energy could actually be really positive, especially if you know where you're headed with it. You're consciously creating it now. You're consciously going towards something you know is going to be good for you. Your body's still going to try to hold you back because it's different, just because it's different, and because we're not familiar with it, right? So that's something like huge. Why I love jumping and shifting so much is because since I've found this and I've been experimenting with these techniques, it has helped me overcome so many things. Like you're looking at somebody who was a single mother, no job, no car, homeless, and only had a few bags of clothes to my name just like 3.5 years ago. So from that to building two businesses that have been successful, one online, my family's never had businesses. No one in my family has ever owned a business. No one in my family has ever stepped out of the 9 to 5. No one in my family has been like successful in a huge way. They've been
Hmm.
successful, but at the 9 to 5. Don't
Yeah.
step out of what you don't know. It could be bad. And then I come along, and that's my whole situation is I have to because I can't hold a 9 to 5 with 3 kids and nobody to help me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I was kind of forced into it, but like having to work through those blocks in a do or die kind of situation, I had to figure out what techniques to use. I had to figure out what worked. I had to figure out how to explain it to others so I could explain it to myself and understand it fully to continue using it over and over and over. So I've gotten to the point now where teaching it has become a huge passion. So I'm super excited. um,
That is awesome. And I just want to say kudos. And you are a very impressive person, a
well,
very
thank you.
impressive human to have made that kind of turnaround. It's funny the time frame in there that the last 3.5, 4 years been a little bit rough for me as well. Um, so good job.
You have your own impressive story. I've heard parts of it. It's no minor feat.
Yeah,
No
it's
minor feat.
and for me, most of mine, the majority of mine though, has been internal, with my internal circumstances, my mental health, my depression, all those kinds of things. And so, thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a little bit of a different tack.
I can fully understand that side of it too. It's not, and you've had external situations too. I know you have because I've heard about some of them, and that's not easy either. Because then our body takes that in and sort of puts it in the index file of what can happen, and that
Well,
can hold us back too.
and I will tell you, I'm not sure I know all of the ones that you know of or that you're referring to, but I can say that like the one that one that gets kind of downplayed, right, in my mind because it was not the main struggle is that is the cancer. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I had colon cancer. My surgery to get rid of it all was 5 years ago, March 3rd, actually. From that perspective, like I was lucky, it was found early, so that wasn't the so battling the disease itself was not the hard battle for me. What the difficulty was what it did mentally for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, I was already ready to give up, and so I went almost from the time that I heard to the time that I actually took action, like did anything about it, was like almost a year. It was like 6 to 8 months, and I went that time with the intention of just being done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so from that shift around, like that has been the major hurdle. That was the battle, not the disease itself, which I guess you could consider that mental disease as well. So it's funny, like that aspect, like I said, I downplay it because that that wasn't the big part, and I don't want that part of my journey to like overshadow people who have had a much harder struggle with the disease itself. You know, I lost an organ and gained an orifice, is how I like to put it. Like, that's all I did.
Completely, but don't downplay that though, because that's a struggle. That's a huge struggle. I mean, that's the mental struggle, like you were saying, is almost harder than going through the physical stuff because the physical stuff is emotion. The physical stuff is something we're taking stair steps on, right? The
Yeah.
mental gymnastics that we have to go through to try to survive those motions in life, totally different story. And people don't tell you this often enough. Healing is not linear,
Oh yeah.
right? So we can go from one day doing really good or part of the day doing really well to something triggering those memories or those emotional feelings, or just, you hear a sound or smell a specific smell, and all of a sudden you are right back in the pits and you are fighting for your life to get back on that better feeling energy, that better mental state. And on those days, sometimes I like to just say, fuck it, and go lay in my bed for a while.
I,
Because
I call those burrito days.
yes, because
Like, just,
yeah, because you just need that time to reset your energy and your body and your mind space, because you know that you're doing okay now.
mm-hmm.
But when you get triggered into that fight or flight, like I just don't want to do this anymore kind of feeling, it takes a bit to get back into that feeling of, I know I'm doing okay. I know I'm not there anymore. We can keep going. And a lot of people don't want to give themselves the grace or the time to do that because our
Yes.
society's so go, go, go. And if you're not being productive, you're not worthwhile. And if you're not doing something, helping somebody, making something, then you're not worthy of love and life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge mental struggle. That's the biggest part of any of it.
Well, and it's a huge thing that I've learned on my journey, and like one of the tools that I use. Because I still have those cycles, and I've found that I can go through them. Like, the dark isn't as dark anymore, but I can allow myself and simply be aware and admit to myself of like, okay, we're having one of those days. We're just going to do it. The more that I've been able to take the judgment out of it, take the self-judgment out of it, and not be like, oh man, I'm so, as you were saying, oh, I'm so worthless because I'm not producing, I'm not doing anything. Oh, that only adds to it. And the more that we try to like deny it and shift that focus, like, yep, you might be able to squeeze your way out of that mentality for a brief moment, or to get yourself through the day. But if you can't admit to it, if you can't see it and can't just validate it as part of your experience, it's just going to get worse. Any trapped emotion, anything that doesn't get expressed, it just because you avoid it doesn't mean it's gone. Like, that's when things are going to come up and just kind of explode and take over and do all of that.
This is a great point, and I wanna mention in here. I think that's why a lot of people have started to shy away from the love and light side of things, is because they feel it's being more emotionally dismissive, um, like spiritual bypassing in a way. But a true spiritualist, somebody who's actually gone through and working through the healing process, gotten to a part where they can understand the value of the light and the dark, right?
Yes.
Is that you don't bypass your emotions. Please do not do that, right? You need to sit with that for a minute and let yourself find the lesson or the understanding or the meaning of why those emotions are coming up in that
Yes.
moment, and validate yourself and hold yourself and love yourself. Like, if you went to your best friend and said, this is the shittiest day ever, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to find love, I'm not worthy, like all these different things, right? Your best friend isn't going to sit there and agree with you and tell you that you're worthless and, yeah, you're right, you should probably just go and crawl into a ditch now. Your best friend is going to sit there and tell you, you're so wrong on all of this, I love you to death, you're worthy of all the things that you want. And if we're not talking to ourselves in the same way that we would want our best friend to talk to us, then we're not truly loving who we are deep down, and we're not accepting ourselves for who we are and what we've been through. Because what we've been through are just experiences that we have to heal from. It doesn't make us who we are as a total. It shows
Yes.
us how strong we can be, and it shows us what we can go through and survive from and how we can help other people. But it doesn't make us who we are. We already are that. So we have to validate ourselves, and we really have to let ourselves have that moment of, I just need to sit in this for a second and to feel it out, and then I can get back up in a little while and do okay, but I still love myself through it anyway. So that's one of the big things I think about love. People tend to shy away from, instead of sitting there and letting themselves love on themselves while going through something heavy. They sit there and they kick themselves in the butt, verbally and emotionally, because like, why are you doing this? Why don't you go get up and be productive? Why don't you do that? Why aren't you better by now?
Well, and I will say, I will say, like, the whole, like, wishing somebody love and light, because yep, I sign off plenty of my videos with that.
Right.
All
There's
that.
nothing wrong with that.
Wishing somebody love and light, though, it sounds a lot better than wishing somebody, well, I hope you learn some wonderful lessons through struggle, hardship, and suffering. Like that, it just doesn't have the same ring to it, you know. Like I wish you struggle and suffering because it's gonna bring you great things. Like no, that doesn't. It just doesn't have that, you know, slightly more positive ring to it as love and light, right?
I wish that they bring you many gifts. There's so many good sign-offs we could do if we're gonna embrace that side of everything, because the phase good gifts cannot be so great to our perspective. You can take that however you want to take it. It's, you know, like love and light has the same weight to it, in my opinion. However they're gonna take it, but truly, if you're, you know, on that path, it's really a matter of letting yourself still be connected to the love and light, even when you're in a heavy emotion, even when you're allowing yourself to feel through those heavy things so that you can move forward in a better way. Right? We all need that moment to just kind of chill out and let ourselves rebalance and get to a place of feeling better before we can move forward.
Yeah.
Personally had one of those days yesterday, so totally get that. And anyone else who's watching this around the time that this gets put out, the Virgo lunar eclipse, full moon, and Venus retrograde, and Mercury retrograde, and Neptune doing something. I think it's switching into a new sign, generationally. Anyways, like 160, something like that. Don't quote me, but somewhere around that. And then it finally switched just this last week, on top of everything else.
Oh yeah, of course.
So all of you listening are going to be understanding that idea of, you just need to give yourself some time. Like here and there, it's okay to let yourself have that time and rebalance and just not do anything and still be okay with that. That peace and break is doing a lot more for you mentally and emotionally than trying to push through it. So
yeah, agreed. Well, and I love that you brought up the whole that healing is not linear. I like to think of it as a spiral. I might have heard that from you, actually. I'm not really sure.
It is a spiral.
Yeah, see? Perfect. The earrings to match. I love that.
Yeah, because we, like, okay, so a lot of people think, I'm here, I'm going to end up here, and there's a straight line in between there, and it's going to be great. But it's actually a spiral to get all the way to the other side, because as we're going through, this goes back to the part of the conversation about manifestation. We want a new vibration, a new energy, and so we're trying to align ourselves with that, but then it triggers all these different wounds that we have to heal to get to point B, to grow into the person we need to be to accept those manifestations. Okay. So who we are in the here and now is not going to be able to accept, say, $10,000 months, if that's a goal of somebody's, right? Like who you are in the here and now might be making $20,000, $30,000 a year. If you were to make half of that in 1 month, you'd freak out and have a mental breakdown. Like you have to be able to work through that process of triggering the different emotions coming forward and having a new understanding, higher perspective come from those old wounds so that you can move forward and become the person you need to be to accept that manifestation. The other thing I wanted to touch really quick on with that process, it's way easier to just think back on old wounds and get a new perspective than it is to garner new wounds going forward and have new things to heal through all the time. Like we don't want to do that. So this is the lesser of two evils. Okay.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So
there's so many lessons you can take from just one wound. So
Might as well make the best of it if you already got it, right? It's already there. It already hurts, so
Might as well.
whatever.
Poke it a little more.
Okay, the other one quick little phrase came to mind as you were saying that, and also just talking about manifestations, is that if you set a goal, the universe will give you a path,
Yes.
not a goal. If you set a path, the universe will give you a goal. Right. And I think that's one thing to kind of realize, like, as manifestations are coming in and as you're going through those struggles, it's like, that is your manifestation working its way towards you. Like, that is the part of it. As you were saying, it's having to rebuild yourself to being the person that has that manifestation, that is in that reality.
Yeah, completely. Because if we're sitting in this energy without the thing that we want, clearly we're not the person who can have that thing yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to align our energy somehow. The best way to do that is through new perspective, higher understanding, gaining the knowledge. Oh, look at that. Our guides are in agreement.
Okay.
Perfect. The universe confirms. We have to be able to align that energy and really get to where we want to go. And celebration on all fronts of that, because like even when it's a hard day, you're still learning the information that you need to align to where you're going, right? So even on those hard days, like I'll use mine yesterday as an example, I did not push through it. I put things off because I needed to. I had moments where I was just like, I'm so done with all of this. Should I even just shift my vision and not keep going for what I'm going for? Because I'm just so fed up with not being there already. And I had to remind myself, and my guides are reminding me, that it's not really about getting where you want to go so fast. It's truly about embracing and finding excitement in the journey of where you're going to. Because, I mean, that story is absolutely phenomenally epic, right? We're trying to get from one point to another point, and along the journey, there's all these different things in our adventure that come up, and we have these crescendos, and we have these valleys, and we have all these different experiences that come through, and people that we meet, and experiences we get to have. And without any of that, if you were just to magically go to point B, and here we are now, this is exciting, you wouldn't have the backstory to it. You wouldn't have the excitement, the knowledge, and the understanding from all the things you had to do to get there. It wouldn't be as worth it. It just truly would not be.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
So we have to get over the frustration and allow ourselves to embrace the adventure.
Nothing worth doing is easy, right?
Right? And I don't know a single hero on their adventure who was like, this is amazing the entire time.
Well, one of my favorite things about heroes is that this just sparked up is that heroes and villains both have tragic backstories.
Yes.
The difference is, what you do about it, how you react to it, how you use that to build yourself into what you are becoming.
Exactly. What's your view on it?
Mm-hmm.
You went through all these horrible things in your life. How do you view it? Are you letting it make you who you're becoming? Or are you overcoming it and embracing who you are even deeper? It really is it's truly just a matter of what path do you choose, how do you reflect on it. And going back to like, I always think of the Knights of the Round Table when I think of like the adventures and these people who have been on them. And I mean, Don Quixote comes to mind. Like, he just had random people coming up to him wanting to kill him out of nowhere because their wife was prettier than his, but in his songs, it's his wife is the most beautiful. So that was one particular one. Can you imagine just like going along your path and everything's great and you're going on your adventure and someone pops out of the bushes and it's like, I'm going to kill you. My wife's prettier than yours.
You're like, what? Why? What?
I wouldn't take that well in the moment.
Yeah, why? Yeah, right. It's like, why are you bothering with me? Why don't you go back and tell your wife that she's the prettiest one? I mean, I feel like that would be a little bit. That also, the whole like going on adventures thing. My buddy, my best friend from high school, known the guy 25 years, right? We have this saying of, it's going to be an adventure, and adventures always work out because you never hear about one that didn't, right?
It's never get told because the person doesn't make it.
See, we try to avoid looking at that part, but right. Adventures always work out, so that's the perspective.
Mine's gonna be told because it's gonna work.
Exactly,
It's where I'm
exactly.
going, no matter what comes up in the way. And that's a big thing of it too. It's like the universe likes to test us, right? But it's to test us to see if we're going to become the person that we need to be to get to the end goal, or are we going to back down and say, never mind, I don't really want to be that person, and create a new manifestation. What's what do you want from it, and how willing are you to get to where you want to go?
Yeah, and for me, like I shy away from the term testing, like the universe testing us, right? I look at it more as giving us an opportunity to confirm.
Mm-hmm.
Is this? Are you sure you want to do this? Yep, I want to go that way. Like I'm sure it gives you that option. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not so much of like, I don't know. Are you ready? Are you sure? It's more of just, are you sure you want to make this decision? Here's your opportunity to, exemplify that, to play it out in a new way, to actually choose that path, as opposed to just setting your mind to it. Start walking it.
Exactly. Yeah. And oh my gosh, don't get me going on decisions. I'm a Libra moon, and a Virgo rising mixed in with Sagittarius. Making decisions is not my strong suit. Hasn't been in the past. Talk about overthinking and wanting to weigh all the options and do all the things, and part of me is like, let's just go, and the rest of me is just like, wait a second, we need to like calculate all this out. Making a decision is truly one of the most life-changing things that you can do, and
Yes.
sticking with it. That's one of the big things that had been an issue for me in the past for a long time, was not just making a decision but sticking with it when it would get hard. Because it was a matter of, wanting to find, for me anyway, wanting to find the easiest path to get to where I want to go, path of least resistance, which I still do, but also having the understanding that there's still going to be obstacles on the path of least resistance. They're just maybe not going to be as bad. And how willing are you still to get to the end goal, right? But making that decision to get there regardless, that is what you truly want to experience, and that's what you really want to have in your life. Like, why not go for it, right? Just hold on to that and keep chugging ahead, because that's how you're going to experience that thing.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, you're not going to experience it, and years down the road, you'll be like, man, I really wish I would have started earlier.
Very true.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. Well, Willow, again, I want to thank you so much for being here. This has been a wonderful conversation, as was the last time. So I just want to thank you. Appreciate that you were here with me.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Wonderful. And for all those listening, thank you guys for hanging out. I do appreciate it. Once again, remember to do the like, follow, share. Also, if you would like to support this project, check out the Patreon, the new Patreon page. I will include a link in the video or in the description where I can. And thank you so much for listening.